It's really great to see such a great turnout and so much advocacy for early intervention of psychosis, as well as psychoeducation, as we might call it. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. If there are any questions during this, please, by all means, just type it in the chat. And if we can't get to those, go ahead and send me an email. The information is available on the New Journeys Gathering site. So if you can't find it there, I'll post it in the chat after we're done here. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to talk to you today about goal setting and ways we get goals set and the way we motivate people to set said goals. So let's go ahead and start. I'd like to start with a quote. As far as I can tell, success is just about letting the universe know what you want and working toward it while letting go of how it might come to pass. Your job is not to figure out how it's going to happen for you, but to open the door in your head. And when the door's open in real life, just walk through it. Don't worry if you miss your cue, because there will always be another door open. And that's a quote by Jim Carrey. Okay, so let's start off. What is a goal? Like, we use this word a lot, goal setting. What are your goals? What's your passion? So this is the direct definition, straight from the actual definition. The object of a person's ambition, effort, an aim or desired result. So I've highlighted ambition, effort, and result for reasons that pertain to the rest of this presentation. So achieving goals. First is the mission. I want to make a change. Let's go ahead and say I want to be able to have more physical activity. So that's the initial. So then vision. This is what I need. So I need to be able to feel like I want to get out there and be more physical. And then the values. What about me allows me to do that regularly, or is there a place I can go to do it? And just really finding out what is meaningful about this to you. So how do I get to where I want to be? Well, ambition is the why, which is ultimately maybe more important than the what. But if you do end up with the why, you usually get to what. So what do you need to get there, and how can we help you? And generally speaking, as clinicians or mental health providers, you are asking, how can we help you? And so we have a result, which is a formula for success. So we have engagement, which is really all right. Looks like we had a little bit of feedback there, but I'll go ahead and just keep going for consistency. So let me go ahead and just reiterate. So engagement, again, is the gateway to the goal. So if you're going to help somebody set a goal or otherwise set a goal yourself, there has to be an engagement period there where you get to a person and you say, what would you like to do? Why would you like to do it? And how can I help you do that? So let's talk a little bit more about supported employment and education and goal setting, because I operated as a supported employment education specialist in the New Journeys program in King County for about 5 years. And the model we used was called the individual placement and support model. And it's an evidence-based practice that helps people get back to work who are experiencing severe mental illness. Excuse me. So it is an evidence-based practice that is utilized here in Washington State. And it is regarding person-centered service. So we talk to people about what they want. We ask you, what would you like? And we don't try to discourage people. We make sure that we motivate them. We use motivational interviewing, which I'm going to continue to talk about here in just a minute. So recovery orientation is the name of the game here, though. We want people to understand that, yes, there is recovery from psychosis. There is recovery from severe mental illness. So that's where we're at. That's what we try to instill, is the hope in people. So psych rehab is the other piece here. So we're going to talk a little bit more about motivational interviewing and how we get people to those goals. So what gets you motivated, right? Some people will just wake up in the morning and they just have it. Well, if you're like me, you wake up in the morning and you roll over into maybe a puddle of motivation before you start swimming in. So let's just use that analogy. And so we'll move forward and really, why? What is it good for? What are we doing motivational interviewing for? Well, here's some great examples. So number one, support self-efficacy and autonomy. Those are two big words, but really what that means is we want a person to be able to do things when they want, how they want, and at the pace they want. So we really want to make sure that those are considered. So eliciting intrinsic resources for change, and I'll talk about intrinsic versus extrinsic resources here in a moment. But we'll go ahead and talk about it also. We want to, while employing motivational interviewing, avoid interpersonal conflicts. So if you don't agree with somebody's opinion on something, this is not a period for you to say, oh, I disagree. Because if we're offering motivational interviewing through person-centered service, we're going to want to avoid those conflicts. So in expressing empathy, I understand how you feel. I really know what that's like, and really just association with the person, which will also result in forming a partnership. So let's move on to the next piece of this, where we talk about driven by a person's intrinsic resources. Goals come from within, and the outcomes satisfy basic psychological needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Now, those are 3 words that I've highlighted that you may not think about right off the top, but if we're talking about competency, really, that's just understanding. And then we're moving into the resources where this understanding comes from. So extrinsic resources, we're talking about the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic. So extrinsic, a paycheck, a slice of cake, it is pressure, or you have a test tomorrow, so you need to study. So that's extrinsic stuff. That's stuff outside of you that causes you to be motivated. Now, here's the intrinsic piece, which is going to be ultimately important here. It is the inherent satisfaction. I'm doing this because I want to, because it provides me with fulfillment or satisfaction. It's fun, challenging, right? Going to a baseball game. I'm doing this because I want, I'm part of a team, and that inherent satisfaction comes with satisfying my team members and being a good team member myself. And of course, like I said, competence, autonomy, relatedness. This is where we talk to a person and we bridge gaps. We talk about, oh, you like basketball? I love basketball. Let's touch on that. What do you love about it, right? And so this is where we're going to move into the OARS model. So OARS is OARS, and that's an acronym for open-ended questions, affirmations, reflective listening, and summarizing. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard of this before, but I really wanted to emphasize the OARS model strictly because I think it's employable and effective. So we want to ask open-ended questions. So here's what open-ended questions are, and then I'll show you some examples of those. So what do you see as your strengths? What have you done in the past that you're proud of? How do you feel about work or school? Can you tell me a positive memory? So these are all questions that can't be answered with yes or no. I mean, they can, but you're going to have to elicit a little bit more in order to get your question answered, right? So, and the person that you're talking to, they're doing the talking. You're asking questions. It is their show, basically. You want them to be on the stage and them to be ready to answer the questions. So then the affirmations. This is appreciation and understanding, and really just forming that partnership that I talked about earlier. So you must have a lot of courage to make it through these experiences, really respecting somebody for the fact that they struggle and continue forward and are in treatment and are in doing whatever it is that makes them happy, right? So I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. And so, when I was serving as a clinician, I would always thank people for their time because, right, my time is valuable. I want to make sure that their time is valuable as well. I consider it the same because time is our most precious commodity. So reflective listening, this builds trust, right? I've heard what you said. I'm really paying attention. So you feel, and what I'm hearing is, right? So these are examples of what you might say to be reflective, and offers respect for the person's inner wisdom, right? And that's a big piece there in thinking reflectively. How is this applicable, and what did I just hear? And right, so this is a part of that as well, summarizing. So we want to use it as a, what their personal experiences are and summarize. So change statement is a great thing to talk about. And these are basically statements that are going to elicit that change, which will be part of that goal setting we discussed earlier. So examples of this, let me see if I understand. So I'm hearing that, and tell me if I missed anything, right? And so these are just really trying to help the person understand that you're there to listen, you're there to reflect, you're there to allow. So lastly, so we've helped a person get through this. We've assessed the why, we've gotten to the what, and the how has been established, and we've completed said goal. So what do we do now, right? So we have to consider what's next. What do we do now that we've learned how to set goals and complete them? So we enjoy those benefits, right? We win that game with our team. We get that slice of cake or whatever it is, right? That's a goal, but it may be small, but it is achievable and rewarding, right? So once we learn those tiny goals and incremental steps towards a greater goal, we can certainly make a personal reward system, right? So, and positive self-talk, I can't stress that enough. And when people say, you drop a fork on the floor and you're like, oh, you feel very shameful about it. So, but that's you know what? That's okay. It happens to everybody. And you know what? I'm not as dexterous as I once was. So your support system will help immensely. So persons such as myself who may be providing treatment or otherwise, building rapport with even a friend or a worker is a great thing to utilize within this. And of course, the last piece of this presentation is continuing to set short and long-term goals. And that is the big piece, because without practice, you will not be as good as you would if you continue to write things down and allow yourself to have steps towards a goal that is realized and is achievable, right? And the reward is essential. So here's some references and resources for the slides that I've used. And of course, any questions that are burning in the chat or otherwise, I have to understand that this is it. So thank you so much for taking the time to come to this. And I'd like to pass it off to, I think it's Darren, or I'm sorry, I'm sure what we figured out here. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle.
Appreciate it, Darren. Wonderful.
Is my screen being shared?
It is, yes. We can see your desktop. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So thank you for that great overview of the goals, because I believe, as performing supportive employment services in the past, really foundational a piece of educating people on that next step for greater independence in the community or greater access to employment is understanding Social Security benefits. So this is going to be a high-level overview. And as Kyle said, if there's some questions or thoughts, please reach out and contact me or our team here today to learn more about Social Security, because it's a very technical process and I'm not going to do it full justice, but we'll go ahead and dive into the elements of Social Security. So Social Security
Aaron,
is... Yes.
Darren, I'm just going to interrupt you for a minute. We see your desktop, but not your PowerPoint presentation.
Wow. Well, let me stop.
Okay.
How about now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Thank you for the nudge. So it's always better to see what I'm talking about on the screen. So Social Security has two main programs, the Supplemental Security Income Program and the Social Security Disability Insurance Program. The SSI program is a needs-based program, and the SSDI program is somebody who's worked and paid taxes and is really to draw back down those funds that they put into the federal government. So these programs provide financial benefits to individuals who have have a disabling condition, and that is something that impedes their functioning and impacts their ability to return to work. To support an individual who's disabled, please keep in mind that Social Security only pays benefits to individuals who suffer total disabling conditions, not partial, not short-term disabling conditions. So what does Social Security really mean by a disability? Well, it means you can't go to work and engage in what they call substantial gainful activity because of your medical condition. You cannot do work you did previously or even adjust to a similar type of employment. And your condition is going to last 1 year or for the rest of your life. These are some of the special conditions for certain groups: blind or have low vision, survivors, that is a spouse, child, or parent of a worker who has passed away, benefits for children with disabilities, and benefits for wounded warriors and veterans. And you can see some of the rates on the screen for 2023. Definitely every year with the cost of living, there's a little bit of a bump for those folks. But as you can see, it's going to be really hard to be able to survive on the rates that Social Security has deemed, appropriate for benefits. So Social Security looks at income differently. And it's always good to be aware of what is countable income, because the more accountable income you have for SSI, your check will be less. So there are a few exceptions to keep in mind when you look at income from organizations. Social Security looks a lot at needs-based and for eligibility for the program. And it's really focused on limited income and having limited resources or both. Some examples of some of the needs-based assistance are maybe somebody goes to a clothing bank for some clothing, or a food bank to manage household nutrition or household supplies or medical supplies, or even in a shelter. Those are all needs-based assistance which don't count as income for the individual. If a participant is attempting to return to school while they have benefits, there's a separate student earned income exclusion. A blind or disabled child who is a student regularly attending school, college, university, or even a vocational program, or maybe that person is actually working with a vocational program with Washington State, the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, to meet, those career or educational goals. And in the bottom of the slide, it really focuses on what the maximum amount are so that somebody can maintain their benefits and still have those earned income exclusion with Social Security to make it through their training or their educational program. So when working in employment services, one of the biggest fears I've heard, and I think it's been documented through a lot of research through IPS, is that people are afraid of losing their benefits if they return to work. So with Social Security program, you have the cash benefits, and you have the medical benefits, the Medicaid benefits for SSI. So there is a section of 1619B of the Social Security Act that really provides some protection for people to maintain their benefits for the beneficiaries who want to return to work, where their cash benefit can go to zero, but they can still continue to be eligible for the Medicaid benefits. Here are some additional tools to assist beneficiaries to return to work. There's the impairment-related work expense. So maybe you have some out-of-pocket expenses that help you maintain your level of work or education, and there's some out-of-pocket expenses that you had that can deduct your total earned income exclusions. There's also some subsidies and special conditions, like maybe job coaching that a provider has direct support on the job to support the person to be successful. There could be some blind work expenses. There's also a plan to achieve self-support, which is called a PASS plan, that you work with Social Security and have a very specific plan and those supports to reach your ultimate goal. And also, there's active participation in approved vocational DVR, vocational rehabilitation through Division of Voc Rehab here in Washington State. So even though there's a lot of specifics with the Social Security Administration guidelines, there's also some ways that people can earn. Here in Washington State, the 2023 threshold is up to a little over $48,000, where they can still be eligible through the Social Security program to maintain their Medicaid benefits. Oops. Real quick on the draw. There's also a developing program. It's called the SOAR, and this is a Social Security SSI SSDI Outreach, Access, and Recovery. And this is a really unique program that's working with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, to do a faster referral, faster authorization process. So it's a national program designed to really increase benefits to programs administered by the Social Security Administration. SOAR is really designed for eligible adults and children who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness, who have a serious mental illness, a medical impairment, or a co-occurring disorder, substance use. My experience working with folks who are applying to Social Security, it can be a process that could take years. So some of the outcomes for the 2022 cycle was that they had over 4,000 decisions on eligibility within Social Security, with a 68 approval rate, with an average of 153 days on average for decision. This could really be a monumental process, and at least people will know what the process is and if they're eligible and whether they need to work with providers to get additional medical documentation from their providers to really support their case of achieving that not label, but designation of having a disability, so that could open up benefits through Social Security. There's some additional supports for supporting people on the journey to employment. And the ABLE program is designed to be available to anyone living in Washington State, as well as 45 additional states. Anyone who has developed a disability or blindness before the age of 26 and eligible for SSI or SSDI benefits can open an ABLE account. This financial vehicle allows others to add funds like family members. As you can see on the slide deck, that's up to $17,000 for this year. So this benefit can be real advantageous if somebody is able to apply and receive Social Security benefits, because they might receive a payment check since their date of eligibility through whatever date that is that Social Security has deemed them eligible. They could get a back payment, which could then go into this account without putting them at risk of meeting the threshold of $2,000 for Medicaid to be eligible for the programs. And the nice thing about this is it's actually the program is expanding, that the ABLE Age Adjustment Act was passed in December 2022, and the qualifying disability age is going to be raised to 46. So this is going to start in a couple of years, January 2026, but it really expand the population of potential eligible people who can take advantage of this program to have more resources without being penalized for that. Here in Washington State, there's an additional program called the Apple Health for Workers with Disabilities Healthcare Program. And it's really for individuals with blindness or a federally established disability who are working. So this includes people who might be self-employed full-time or part-time. Participants must pay the monthly insurance premiums. You have to be a citizen or meet Medicaid immigration requirements and be age 16 or older. There's no resource or income limit to qualify for this program, but for this, you must be a resident of Washington State and not receive other Medicaid benefits. So this allows somebody who's working to buy in to the Medicaid program on a monthly premium sliding scale, which will not be more than 7.5% of their gross income. So this gives a lot of flexibility for individuals who want to work, but they know their income is going to increase where they can maintain their Medicaid insurance. My previous role of working in behavioral health services, I worked with folks who were able to do this for many, many years, that they were able to maintain employment, maintain their benefits so they could continue with those social service SUD type services to maintain that stability. And it was a real benefit, and I can't speak more highly of the program. So definitely there's additional information on the resource page to access some of the information that we talked about with Social Security as well for Apple Health. Here's some of the links that we'll have available for folks. So definitely, this is a short overview. I really encourage people to check into it more, particularly the Social Security Red Book. I think it's a great piece to have on anybody's desktop if you're working with people returning to work, as well a little bit more information on the SOURCE program. And the HCA, DVR, DDA all work together to support pathways to employment. So that has additional resources and some training videos developed through WISE to go a little bit more in depth into SSI, SSDI, TANF, as well as HWD. So if you have any questions, as Kyle said, please reach out to us. We're always available to do some follow-up or some individual trainings as well. And with that, I will pass it over to Dawn, unless any questions came up in the chat.
I haven't seen any up to this point yet.
Thanks for checking. Danielle.
Absolutely.
All right. So now all I have to do is actually find where the presentation went. Hi, everyone. My name is Dawn Miller. I am with the Healthcare Authority. I'm the Supported Employment Program Manager for the east side of the state, and I work with agencies that provide foundational community support, supported employment. Typically, they use what's called individual placement and support, which is the evidence-based practice of supported employment. Let's see here. Let's see if I can share my screen and find the actual PowerPoint. There we go. And I apologize, it's going to take me just a sec to get things going. So when Darren and I and Kyle started talking about doing this particular presentation, part of it was based on the fact that the CE specialist asked for some information about benefits planning. And they were talking about different ideas related to training that they would want to receive. I think there's a supposition that people with serious mental illness can only go on SSI or SSDI, and that's the extent of their abilities. It's not true. So that's where the dispelling the myths comes in. Applying for benefits and receiving benefits may be one of the paths for folks that have serious mental illness. It's not the only path. So I'm going to talk a little bit about functional recovery, including getting employment. I say I am. Let's see if I can get it to advance to the next slide. I love technology, don't you? There we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about relationship building, about things being strengths-based, that there's no readiness criteria. And I know that comes as a surprise to some folks. To those of us that are doing individual placement and support on a regular basis, we know that it says if a person says they're ready to work, they're ready to work. I'll talk more about that. Over the years that I've provided supported employment services, and it's been kind of a boatload of years, boatload of wonderful years. Some people know what they want to do, some don't. And so Kyle's part of the presentation related to goal setting, motivational interviewing, that kind of thing is huge related to working with the folks with whom we work in order to be able to help them to decide what it is that they might want to do. Need for employment services, and this is from, sorry about that. This is from the Individual Placement and Support website, ipsworks.org. 60% or more of people with serious mental illness want to work. Once upon a time, the employment rate of that group within the state of Washington was about 14% prior to starting to do foundational community supports. With using individual placement and support, it's bumped up to about 42% employment rate. Not 100% yet, big difference, but it's important to know that there are a lot of folks out there, and you can see it differs on in the table in regards to the percentages, highest being 78, lowest being 48. Even if it's 48, about half the folks with serious mental illness really want to work, and it's looking like more than that. So that's something to be aware of when you're working with folks. If you ask them whether they want to work, you may hear no because of fear, because of bad experiences, because of a lot of things, but not because of a lack of desire to work. Do people have to be ready to work? One of the things, one of the things I want to share is that when I started working with people with serious mental illness in regards to employment back in 1997, I think it was, I don't know that I truly believed that anybody could work. I've seen hundreds of success stories. I've seen people on my caseload that I thought, wow, this is going to be, easy to help them get a job. It's going to be a slam dunk to have it not work. And I've seen others where I thought, I'm not so sure, but you know what? I'm going to do my very best to support this person and have them succeed in an amazing way. So we don't have a crystal ball. We can't say who's going to succeed and who's not. I think the sharing of those success stories and seeing so many success stories is what made me be a convert And I can now successfully, or I can now honestly say that with the right support and the right job match, anybody can work. It's just helping them to helping to convince them of that fact, because so many people have been told maybe all their lives, you can't, you can't, you can't. Or since they, had their first episode of psychosis, you can't, you can't, you can't. They can. We can help. How many times in your life have you not been taken seriously or told you can't, only to prove them wrong because you just decided you were gonna? I'll show you. That's not a bad thing. What benefit is there to working with people not perceived as ready? Could it give them hope? Could it, start helping them to get ready? Could it be a scenario in which it helps to pull their supports on board so that those people are also helping to advocate for the ability of the person to find a job? I think there's lots of benefits for working with a person that may not be perceived as ready. Are you ready on any given day? I'm not. I have anxiety disorder, and if anyone had told me 8 or so years ago that I would have been a presenter and that it's one of my favorite things to do, I would have had to say no. But at this point in time, if anybody was to try and tell me that with my anxiety disorder I can't be a presenter, I'd have to tell them you're wrong. I did my own exposure therapy. It's working, and I really enjoy doing it. I had a, thank you, Kyle. I had a gentleman that I supervised that came back and shared about an employer contact where somehow he brought up, can you work with people who have substance use disorder? And the employer laughed at him and kind of said, are you nuts? Do you mean to tell me you think that everybody that's an employee here has failed to use or is not using substances or that kind of thing? Well, you'd be absolutely wrong. I think of friends and family members and things that made the distinction between work time and not work time, and wouldn't have been considered necessarily ready to work because of substance use issues, but they were. Same kind of thing related to, is it a waste of time to work with somebody who is perceived as not being ready? I had a gal in my caseload. I'm hopefully going to tell the story quickly, and if I don't get through the slides, I think the story is more important than the slides. When TANF came up with their 5-year lifetime limit of you can be on TANF for 5 years, then you've got to be employed. There was a gal that came in disheveled, not wearing appropriate clothing, arms folded, said, I'm not going to work at McDonald's and you can't make me. I said, why would I want to? If it's not what you want to do, why would I want to do that? So over a period of time, I convinced her that we could look for a job that would be interesting to her. She had no clue what that might be. I asked what she did for fun. She loved horses. She was not pleasant to be around, both because of hygiene and because of the way that she treated folks. We did research with the feed companies. We did research with the Granges to try and find jobs. Didn't find one. Found that, and it only makes sense, folks that own animals, if they go on vacation, somebody has to take care of the animals. So that's what she started doing. I was in Moose Lake. She had a job in Quincy, to take care of some animals. Her car broke down, 40-mile drive between the two. She called in desperation and said, can you take me there? I said, yes, I can. On the way over, she was her usual kind of crabby self. I watched her with the horse, brushing and petting and cooing and, just obviously loving spending time with that horse. When she got back in the car and on the drive back to Moses Lake, she was pleasant. Fancy that. She came in telling me she was not ready. No way was she going to work, and it wasn't going to be a McDonald's, but it did end up being something that she enjoyed doing. And so there's a lot of benefit to working with people that maybe don't know what they want to do or don't perceive themselves as ready. So Darren already talked about disability benefits. I'm here to tell you that the person's doomed to poverty if they get on benefits. Is it good that they've got the financial resources and some of the other resources that come with it? Absolutely. Do you know many people that can afford to pay for a decent apartment on the money that SSI brings in? or even SSDI, though it's more money than is SSI. So feeling like that's a person's forever income doesn't necessarily do them a service. Not to mention the fact that, and in other slides I'm going to talk about the impact of unemployment and that kind of thing, or the impact of the reverse of that, the impact of employment. We all need something to stimulate our mind. We all need a sense of belonging. We all need a lot of those things that a person doesn't necessarily get once they've gotten their disability benefits, and if they're sitting at home with those. Employment is a critical mental health intervention. It is. And I know that not everybody believes that. This happens to be where it says Drake, that's Bob Drake, one of the folks that ended up developing the individual placement and support program. It is an important social determinant of health. One of my mentors, Joe Maroney, shared data about the fact that people that are chronically unemployed die years earlier than those of us that are typically employed. Think about that. The one study that he shared said up to 25 years earlier. How is that not a medical issue? You know, if you think about it, you can come up with all the reasons why it might go that way. Everything from failing to keep a roof over your head, to failing to have good food, to maybe not making it to doctor's appointments because you lack transportation, or whatever it might be. But employment is huge. It is a social determinant of health, and it is critical for mental health, for mental wellness. Recovery. I know we've heard of substance use recovery, but there is also mental health recovery. And here are the components within that. Work actually falls in health. Work actually falls in purpose. Work actually falls in community. Maybe it falls into home as well, because of the ability to pay your rent if you've got a job that will allow you to do that. Work is an important part of behavioral health recovery. So positive impacts, here are some of them. Once again, you see Bob Drake in the list of references there. I'm not going to read them to you, and I'm sure you can add your own to it. I will always say, and it's a joke and yet it's not, that I'm in my dream job. I'm 66 years old. I don't plan to retire till I'm 70. Maybe not even then, we'll see, because I love what I'm doing. It's so meaningful. It feeds my soul. I don't see feeds my soul on that list, but you know, I think it's there for some of us. I think it's there for Darren and Kyle. I think it's an important part of what it is that we do. Lots of positive benefits to being employed. And don't we want those for the people that we serve as well? So part of the important piece of helping a person to move forward is building that rapport. When you build rapport, folks end up trusting that you have their best interest at heart. That perhaps you know what you're talking about after all when you say that work is something that they can do. There are lots of ways we can build rapport. There's lots of things we can do to observe, is this working for a person? The gal that I mentioned that came in with the 10-year life or 5-year lifetime limit on her TANF and said, I won't work in McDonald's. Getting to know her, getting to know what she liked, getting to know how to communicate with her, all of those made a big difference. Building that rapport really made a big difference. She felt safe enough to call me and say, I need a ride. I really have to get over there. Can you do that for me? And that was from the rapport building. Part of that rapport building, and I've had the good fortune of going to a lot of different trainings over the years. Sometimes sponsored by different agencies like DSHS or WorkSource or whatever. One of them was customer service. In that customer service training, it talked about customer service starts at coming in the door. Is the receptionist or the front desk person or the administrative assistant, whoever it is, are they friendly and welcoming? Are the people that the person engages with from the door into the appointment that they're going to, are they friendly and engaging? Are you friendly and engaging? if you've ever had poor customer service someplace and not gone back, that could be a big part of the reason why people no show for our appointments when they do, because it's a pretty big thing. Fear can be something that causes a person to no show for appointments. Building that rapport, paying attention, being friendly and open with them goes a long ways towards finding out why it is that a person either comes or doesn't, and how to help them work through that. I know I'm coming right up on the time. I'm just going to mention services should be strengths focused. I've been in the field for long enough. I know we did a lot of deficits based kinds of things. We got to fix this or that. Anybody who tells me they're going to fix me before I can go to work is probably in for an uphill battle. Just saying. So working with the person with the strengths that they've got, because everybody's got some, is where we need to be. Here's some examples. Part of that strengths focus is also celebrating small successes. I used to love, I worked at a WorkSource as a partner. I worked for the mental health agency, but we had a desk at the local WorkSource. Every time somebody ended up getting a job, they rang a bell, and everybody would stand up and cheer. How do you think that made the person feel who had just gotten the job? It gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because it's a wonderful thing. Celebrating that success of others is amazing. One of the things that we do in order to do the work that we do is to complete a career assessment, a vocational profile. It really is just a kind of a documented way of getting to know the person, so you don't forget to ask them about the things that are important for them to share with you so that they can get the job that's their best match. I'm gonna skip this one because I know we're running out of time. Sometimes there's limited or no progress. The only person we can control is ourselves. What have we done that maybe we could do differently that would help a person progress? What haven't we done that we could perhaps do to help them progress? Can we ask them questions about, how am I doing for you? What could I do differently that would help you to move forward? Darren had a list of resources. I will say when you get these slides, and I don't know, Danelle, if they're just on the website and they have to reach out and grab the slides, if we're going to send them to them, but these are active links. So these different resources are ones that you can access through our slides. I say questions, I think we're right up until the end.
I think a few of our other presentations too are going a little bit over. So I think we have a minute or two if you all would like to bring in some questions.
Okay, all right, good deal.
And yes, the slides will be available on the event platform, which you all will have up to a year to be able to go back and access. So you got lots of time. Yep, but they will be available.
Well, I will point out the fact that in this one, we've included the contact information for all three of us. I know all three of us welcome you reaching out to us if you want additional training, if you have questions that we haven't had a chance to answer, if you want more resource material of various sorts. Your success is our success, so please reach out if you have questions. We want you to be able to have the resources and information that you need. I was going to look at the chat real quick and see what we got going on.
Yeah, thanks.
Did you notice, are there questions?
No, I haven't seen any questions come in so far. Some positive feedback about the program and the resources, which is awesome to hear.
Absolutely.
Kyle, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say thanks to Dawn and Darren for providing amazing presentations and so much valuable information shared there. But if you have any other questions regarding things outside of supported employment and education or IPS, again, the Spirit Lab at University of Washington has a lot of information regarding your journeys, how to set up a site, how to refer somebody, anything you might need. Please reach out to myself or anyone else at the Spirit Lab to ask questions or just create a space for conversation to learn more. So just wanted to leave that on the table for anyone. Please feel free to reach out.
And I just wanted to say thank you all for attending the session today. Hopefully we'll have opportunities to share some more through some trainings or consultations in the future.
Absolutely.
I'm going to thank you, everyone, Kyle, Dawn, and Darren. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I'm going to drop in the chat box the link for folks to get back to the agenda so you can watch closing remarks. There was a question that just came in. I'm 66 years old with a similar work success as Dawn. My projected retirement age is 70. Are you getting questions regarding when you plan to retire?
Pamela, it's nice to know that I'm in good company. I get not so much questions from my colleagues, but teasing. They call me the Ric Flair of of supported employment. If you have any knowledge of WWE, evidently Ric Flair, I know that he's been a wrestler, but he's also one that they're sort of having to push out the door because he's not ready to go yet. So I'm the Ric Flair of supported employment. Perhaps you are too. The OG of our program. Tell me what OG is.
Original, is that right, Pamela?
Old OG, I think the common vernacular amongst the youngsters is original gangster.
Go, Pamela. I'm going to use that. I like it a bunch.
Anyway, thanks everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of the gathering. Thanks.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.